You took your Hopi Indian test last week, and now we're on our final tribe. And this tribe is, oh my, this tribe is kind of a crazy tribe. This tribe lives closest to us, kind of over in the Seattle area, around there, closer to the ocean. And because they live closer to the ocean, they had everything they've ever wanted as far as food. They had all of the salmon, they had all of the fish they could eat, they had all of the forest animals, and they had berries and roots and all kinds of good stuff to eat. And so there was, so they were never a hungry people. They were well fed. And I don't know if you know the story about salmon, but let me see. The mommy salmon lay their eggs up a river, and then once the little fish are hatched, they go down river out into the ocean, and they live out in the ocean for I forget how long. No, a few years, and then there's something inside them. I don't know what it is, but some kind of a thinking process that lets them know that they need to go back home and lay their eggs, so that all the salmon from all these different rivers find which river they were born in, and they swim up that river. And it's harder to swim up a river than it is to swim down a river. So their noses get kind of funny. Their noses get kind of scooped up a little bit, because they're going to have some power, because they haven't got motors. All they've got is a tail and fins. So they're going to have power to get up that river and jump up that river. And they jump, and so their noses look kind of strange, because I don't know, they change because they needed the extra force. I don't know, but anyway, their faces kind of change a little bit, and their meat isn't quite as good. Their meat is kind of gets soft, not like a young fish. Like when they first went down, they were fresh and new. But now that they're older fish, they're coming up, and they swim up the river until they find where they were born. And the mommies lay their eggs there. And lots of times they take their tails and they sometimes they bury them in mud, or sometimes they just lay their eggs there on the side. And those eggs are fertilized by daddy fish, and then the mommies and daddies die. Isn't that so sad? Well, everyone knows that the salmon are going to go up the creek. Sooner or later, the salmon are going to come up the creek. Well, that's what these Indians knew too. So they could catch salmon by the ton, because all the salmon they knew were going to go up creek and die. So they had salmon. In just a short amount of time, they could get enough salmon for a long time. And so that was their favorite food. It was their easiest food. And they would take the salmon and they would, cut it and take the bones out, lay it in the sunshine and dry it, and they could eat it for years. So they always had salmon. And they also ate things like bear and elk and moose, and all those things lived in the forest. So they were good to go. And they wore skins, because they had every forest animal you can imagine. One of the funny things that they had that no other tribe had that I know of was a thing called a candlefish. And it wasn't a really big fish. It was just kind of a little smallish type fish. But he was oily, like greasy. And they would catch these candlefish, and they would bake them, I guess that's the right word, and they would get the oil out of the fish. Now, the fish wasn't full of oil on his tummy, but his skin was. It was very greasy, and they would get that oil, and they would use that oil for all kinds of things. One thing, they would use it for medicine. They would drink it. They would wipe it on them, kind of like you would wipe on maybe an ointment to help us cut heal. They would use it for that. They would use this oil for dipping other foods into, so they would find some kind of something growing, and they would dip it into this candlefish oil. And to them, it was just lovely. And of course, it was free, and it was tasty, and it was nutritious. And so candlefish oil was what it was all about. Now, these people, like most Native Americans, were very creative. They were very good with their hands and very imaginative. And so they were very good carvers. And they would take cedar, which is a wood that still in our forest today, they would take cedar and they would make a box out of cedar. And it had to be a box that didn't leak. So I don't know if they put pieces together and they could fit them so perfectly they didn't leak. I didn't understand that process. But they made boxes out of cedar, and they would take candlefish oil and put them in the boxes. And well, you think, well, okay, so that you have to keep this oil somewhere. But what they would do was keep them in boxes, and then they would. It was like if you had whoever had the most candlefish oil was the richest, because these people, they didn't have to work hard because their food was provided for them. They were a peaceful tribe, so they weren't out with lots of wars and that kind of thing. So they didn't really need protection. That was what the dads were into, protection and getting meat and all that kind of stuff. So they didn't really need that. They didn't need to grow gardens because they had everything they needed. They had every berry in the forest. So these people didn't have anything to do, not really. And so they collected candlefish oil, and they built box after box after box. And when this one box got full, then they'd make another box, and pretty soon they had all this candlefish oil, and it got to be this prestige, like I have more oil than you do, ha 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 ha, kind of like that. Because their idea was they wanted to be rich. And to them, hey, today in the rich world, you gather money, you gather stocks or whatever. But in this Native American world, candlefish oil was what it was all about. So whoever had the most candlefish oil was the most wealthy. And so maybe at your parties that you would have, you would say, hey, well, how much candlefish oil do you have? Well, I have 12 containers. Oh, is that all? Well, yes, I remember back when I had 12 containers, but now I've got 20. Yes, I had to build 3 new boxes just in the last month. And on it goes. Compare and compare and compare. So, we're all alike, whether we were born way back when or we're born today. We all pretty much have that rotten nature that has to be eradicated, has to be gotten rid of. And that's why Jesus had to die, because we all have the same idea. We all, we're all proud. We all have a problem. We all have sins in our lives. And maybe not every sin, but it doesn't make any difference. One sin makes you a sinner. So Jesus said, oh, you Tlingit Tribe, you crazy people, you are just, you are so interested in becoming rich that, it is not the right thing. And we're going to learn about what the chiefs in the tribe did. We'll learn about that later on in the week, because that was a crazy thing too. This Tlingit tribe, it starts with a T, but it's pronounced with a K. This Tlingit tribe lived in the northwestern part, just like we live in the northwest. Well, they lived in the northwest too, over by the ocean though. And you can see, actually, they kind of lived almost up into the Canada area. You can see the picture there on page 43 of where they lived. And they were people that didn't have to work. And so because they didn't have to work, they had to do something. So it was getting rich. It was all about getting rich. And, I think there's a great scripture on that says, go ahead and do your work, because too much time with idle time, they call it, and that doesn't mean like idle you worship, but it means like too much time on your hands. Your mommy and daddy kind of realize that too. Hey, pretty much, if you haven't got anything to do, pretty soon you find the wrong thing to do, whether it's fuss with your brothers and sisters, whether it's, do something you shouldn't do, that kind of thing. So mommy and daddy are smart people. They say, little Puffer Luffer, he needs a little job to do, so we're going to go ahead and let him do the lawn today, mow the lawn, or we're going to let him go ahead and weed the garden, or we're going to go ahead and let him do some kind of chore. Mommies and daddies are smart. That's why you have them. And mommies and daddies know how to keep you busy enough so that you don't get into too much trouble. But these Indians were not busy, so trouble it is. We'll learn about that another day. Okay, bye-bye.